Hello and welcome to episode 100 of Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Reena. And we did it.
Fittingly for episode 100, we are talking about Avengers Endgame, considering episode 1 was about the press conference where they unveiled all of the stuff that was coming up through this movie.
Oh my god, I didn't even know that.
Yep, back in 2014, that was our first episode.
Wow, it seems like a lifetime ago.
Well, it was 4.5 years ago. It was a while.
Maybe I've been stuck in the quantum realm.
Perhaps. With all of its many rules that don't get followed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll jump into that, but there is some news that has to do with Endgame, so let's jump into news real quick.
Food poisoning scare sweeps city.
This is coming from Polygon, Owen S. Good at Polygon, but it's really like just a bunch of numbers that are from Disney directly. Avengers Endgame breaks box office records with massive $1.2 billion opening.
Jesus.
Yeah, that is fucking crazy. Domestic gross, this is just a list of records. Domestic gross, $350 million. International gross, $859 million, which overtook The Fate of the Furious, weirdly enough.
I did not know that was that big of a movie, but okay.
Yeah. That was an enormous movie. It kind of shocked everybody. Domestic single day gross, $156.7 million on Friday. Domestic Saturday gross, $109. Domestic Sunday gross, $84.3. Opening day China, $107.8. Opening weekend in China, $330.5. Biggest IMAX global debut at $91.5. And then fastest movie to $1 billion, beating Avatar by like 5 days or something. Avatar had 9 days, and this did it in the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I was going to go see it in IMAX, and I had already seen it that morning, and so I had to take an Endgame break because I was a little ambitious of me to try to see it twice in the same day, and I was literally like seeing an 11 p.m. showing. And
that was the one where I was actually like, I can't even imagine doing this twice in one day.
No, and you know what? I didn't, because I was curled up in a little ball in the front seat, like, not awake. I was, like, sleep drunk, and Matthew was like, yeah, we're not going. He's like, you're not gonna make it. I was like, I don't want to ruin your night. And he's like, you're not ruining my night. And then we fought about that for, like, a minute, but yeah, I pretty much made it up, like, one exit of the freeway.
Oh, yeah. My second viewing was at the place that I used to work, and that's literally 10 minutes down the road. And my drive back, I was like, am I going to fall asleep in this 10 minutes coming home? Just because it wears you out. Not the physical aspect of a long movie, really, but it really wears on you. The stuff that you go through in this movie.
I feel amazing. I just came out of my third showing, and I feel like a sense of satisfaction, a sense of closure.
It's incredibly satisfying, and there's a lot of closure, but it's also, like, it's a very hard roller coaster to go through some of those moments.
I don't know. I feel like intense. I navigated that okay.
Well, yeah, we know you're cold and heartless, so...
But I feel like, listen, in my personal life, closure is something I very rarely achieve, so no wonder why I like this movie so much. But I also, like, I saw it with, like, different groups of people. Like, I went with Matthew, and I went with our video team from my job, and then I actually met up with my old coworkers today to go see it, and there was like 10 of us. And so, like, whenever a movie of this scale, it makes me feel good because I know my place in this world, where people are like, oh, we have to ask Reena to go see this movie. And I know it's so I can explain things at the end. Like, I get it, but, like, I feel like I know my place in this world.
I'm part of it.
I am. I'm definitely part of it. This is like
you're a piebald song.
Hey, I'm part of it.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that.
You're part of it.
But like, dude, I can't. I have been like dying to talk to you about this. I've been saving it up.
Yeah, it's needless to say, don't listen to this episode until you see the movie, because we're about to dive into many spoilers.
Spoilers across the board. Don't, like, Steve, turn it off if you haven't listened to it. Like, just do it.
Steve said he was going to Captain Marvel yesterday and this movie today.
Okay.
He is supposedly caught up. So Steve, welcome back to the land of the living.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah. But the speaking on the stuff with like closure, just on a meta level, this is the most perfectly tied bow that could possibly ever be like put on a movie that had the stakes that this had. Like, it is wrapped up as perfectly as it possibly could for so many of the characters in this movie.
Agreed. And I thought they did a great job with, completing story arcs in a way that didn't feel forced.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been easy to just kill everybody, right? But they didn't do that. Like it had to make sense to the character.
Yeah. And particularly with Tony and Cap specifically, I think they are the most obvious ways that they were going to go. But at the same time, like, it doesn't matter if it's obvious. If it's the right thing to do for the story, it is the right thing to do for the story. And this was the right thing to do for the story.
I think we should, because it's such a big movie, I think we should just start with, like, let's go, like, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Because I feel like Act 3 has a lot of stuff.
It's so weird, though, because this movie almost doesn't have a first and second act. Like, it's just, like, a bunch of vignettes and then a final act. It's so strange, the way that felt.
Well, here's how I'm dividing it up. I'm dividing it up by...
Before the time jump, then the time jump, and then...
the time... Well, we'll say, before the time jump, the time heist, and the final battle. That's how I'm kind of dividing it up.
Yeah. So, basically, like, following up from Infinity War, we are in a place where everybody is super unhappy for obvious reasons. But it's interesting. That's like the part that stuck the least with me. Was before the time jump, because that's you jump to a place where these characters have not moved on, but like have like moved to a place where they aren't quite in the same place as they are at the beginning of the movie in such a drastic way, other than like Black Widow. She's sort of in the same place the entire time. But like the opening sequence with Hawkeye is just like devastating.
I couldn't watch it a third time. I went and got a soda.
And it's kind of like, it's such a bummer to me, because this is Jeremy Renner at his best for this franchise is in this movie, and it sucks so much that the character needed to have everything taken away from him to get all of that stuff that we knew he could do from the get-go, but was never given the chance to actually really portray on the screen. Because he was sort of, introduced with Thor, like, kind of in the background a little bit, and then he's Avengers
basically like on the same level of like Maria Hill for like a bit of it.
Basically, into like even through the first Avengers movie, I would say he's like on the same level as Maria Hill, because he's really just a pawn until the final battle, once he's freed from Loki's love enchantment. But
we all were freed from Loki's love enchantment. Actually, no. You know what? I take that back. Because as soon as he appeared on screen, it was like, woo, hello.
Of course. But the it's so, like, really, Age of Ultron was when we started to actually see him do some shit. And then we got a little bit in Civil War, but not quite as much as of Age of Ultron. So it's like, finally, this movie, like, lets him do shit.
Mm-hmm. And prove why Hawkeye was there in the first place.
Yeah. Like, he's the one that brings the damn gauntlet out of the rubble.
Right? And I love that he became Ronin.
Yeah.
Like, he really did lose everything, and it made sense.
I was a little disappointed with the choreography in that sequence, but that Tokyo sequence is lit really, really cool, and the single shot of him going back and forth, just the camera moving back and forth, while the dialogue before the sword fight happens was cool.
It was a nice throwback, though, to, like, old school, like, sword fight martial arts type films, and the Japanese was good.
But it also felt a little John Wicky as well.
Yeah, but I thought that was, like, kind of the point. Because even the guy, the mob boss that he was fighting against was doing, like, that manner of speaking in Japanese when you're in, like, a battle.
Yeah, it was definitely, like...
That's, like, a very specific tone.
Yeah.
That is, like, the action sequence tone.
It felt kind of like Tokyo Drifter a little bit. Which is, you go to, like, 50s and 60s, swordplay movies for that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I liked what that scene did. It was really just the choreography. I was like, this isn't as intense as I wish it was, but that's a nitpick. Like, that's such a nitpick for an otherwise really awesome sequence that, you know, reintroduces us to him after not getting anything in Infinity War.
And so, like, okay, so we talked about we're up to, like, the 5-year marker. I like how Captain Marvel ties in so well, like, not just her, but, like, the cutscene when she shows up. I like when
I really like the sort of angelic play that they went with that. It was very, very quiet, and she just sort of, like, appeared in a white light, basically. Mm-hmm. I liked it played up the humanitarian aspect.
There was a lot of that, because there was a nice juxtaposition with Nebula, who we also see playing up the humanitarian aspect, because she also lost everything. She lost her sister, she lost, like, her new friends, like, her dad killed everybody.
So, I don't know if it played this way for you, but that opening of Tony and... Because now we're technically still just before the time jump, but that scene where Tony is teaching her how to play paper football. Mm-hmm. He's, like, this whole movie is him having lost a surrogate son, trying to then use that same kind of feeling with Nebula in that moment, of trying to be a surrogate father to her.
Are you sure? Because I didn't read it.
It played that way so much to me, because he lost Peter, and he's trying to reestablish, like, where to direct those feelings, because she lost everything too with her family as well.
I felt like she also took care of him and helped him.
Oh, of course.
So he was injured, and I think that, you know, they're trying to make the most of it before they both
kids
were going to
take care of their parents too, though.
Yeah, I read them more as peers. That's all.
I think the reason it played that way for me is because she's not used to having an older figure than she is, giving her this sort of, like, positive push, like, because he was doing the thing that, like, hey, these are the rules, but we don't have to get, like, upset if we're not doing good, but hey, you might win. Hey, look, you won. Like, it felt like that kind of aspect to me through it. But I mean, that's all interpretation. That's going to be different for everybody anyway. So
And then, so we get to the point Captain Marvel rescues them, which I think makes sense because she's been cruising around, like, checking on everything. I think, like, if there was a chance that they were out there, she would have been the person to try to locate them anyway. And
Yeah,
I imagine with Pepper being in the fold, that might have been the case because Pepper's already at the facility when they bring
yeah,
him back.
and I think it's after the post credit scene from Captain Marvel where she comes back to the pager and they establish like, okay, who's not here? We need your help. Can you go find Tony? Um, and it works so well because it's also she's the only one that can travel the way she can because they need a ship to be able to travel for anybody else. And at that point, I don't think there was another ship. So, um, yeah, I just that opening. There's really good stuff in it, but the time jump hits so hard that it almost makes me like forget moments from before the time jump.
We're missing a big one before the time jump, my friend. It's when they all go to the garden planet where Thanos is living his humble farmer life
Yeah,
and execute him pretty straight on, and to learn that the stones he used them to destroy the stones essentially. Which I actually found I missed it the first time, and I was like, well, why didn't they just look for the signature? But I realized it was because he hadn't used them again until 2 days later, and so that's when it came
yeah.
up. And
They
like
were
it all
basically
the
reading another earthquake, basically. Yeah,
but and I don't know if it was them like scanning it or it was when the actual space people came into the fold that knew a little bit better what to look for. But
yeah. I feel like Rocket was probably able to set up the computer system to kind of like look for a certain thing, and then once that happens, it's like, oh, okay. And then they needed Nebula to be like, do you know a general idea? And then they could look like, okay, that direction. Oh, there's that thing. Okay, now we can go get yeah.
but the heartbreak on Black Widow's face when she realizes that the stones are gone,
Yeah.
and that's it. And the killing Thanos does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and
Nothing. It doesn't provide any sense of relief at all. It's
yeah,
pretty shocking.
I wrote a thing because I've never really like I've liked Thor movies. I like the first one, the second one's whatever, and Ragnarok is hilarious. But I've never like really connected to Thor until this movie, and this like the struggle that he goes through of feeling like he failed people, even though it's like he obviously didn't fail people. He did the best he could. But like the physical manifestation of the anguish he's going through reminded me a lot of the way that I was going through the last year with the family health stuff and feeling like I couldn't, hold everybody up as best I could. And it definitely took a physical labor on my body, and it's really interesting to see that that's the connection that I made the most in this movie. Out of like, there's hugely emotional moments and pivotal moments through this whole movie, but for like a new emotional connection, it's the only one that came through. It is very. That's what probably surprised me the most about this entire movie. Because I did not see that coming.
Oh, your emotional connection to Thor.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like emotional connections, I mean, I probably felt more akin to Scott Lang, which I feel like he's kind of been funny, but when he comes back from the quantum realm and thinks he's only been there for 5 hours and he has to piece together what happened, and when he's running to see if his daughter's made it, and when he reunites with her, like
Yeah.
I like because he was always cute with his daughter, and like in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and they had a really good relationship.
He's a regular guy.
Yeah,
that's a lot of the stuff that you see through him. Yeah.
He really is like a puppy. Rocket was right.
But
But that part, like, in the other thing that's nice about having Ant-Man in it as well is because he hasn't been in the game that long, so he's like, what's an Infinity Stone? Like he generally, like, he only knows his like little bit of the world.
Yeah, which is like that helps people coming into the movie. It gives a perspective for the audience a little bit to be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, a character that can say, I have no idea what is going on right now is always helpful for the audience. And then like the stuff with Cap and Widow, like one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is when they're sitting down after, when she's eating the peanut butter sandwich. Like,
and her hair is grown out. Listen, if a girl like that does not touch up her friggin' roots in 5 years, she's like on the edge. I'm so glad that no one let her get bangs.
Yeah. I guess the hair decision was actually hers, was Scarlett Johansson's as well.
But it was so smart because I don't know. I feel like there were a couple callbacks to the women in the audience, and I think that was one that she let her hair just grow out. She just stopped getting it done. Because Black Widow always had her hair. She was always, no matter what mission it was, her hair was perfect. It might have been different. She changed it up, but she was always on point, and that was like part of who she is. And then to just kind of let it go like that, it's not a good sign. It's like me going out without my eyebrows done. You would know it's a problem.
Yeah. On top of that, it also, even if you didn't pick up on that, it was a steady reminder that like, oh shit, yeah, we had a time jump. Like it even down to that, because other than the one time that it has the title card that says 5 years later, and it takes its time to say 5 years later. I don't know why they decided to go with such a slow title card on that.
Well, I think it's because they wanted to do like the reveal, right? So we didn't know at 5, we're like, 5 weeks, 5 months? Nope, 5 years.
I think it could have gone a little faster, but it helped remind the audience of that a little bit too, I think, because that's really one of the only times that you get that reference besides like seeing Cassie grown up. But yeah, it's so hard to talk about things from this movie that aren't like the final third of the movie, just because that's where so much of the like, fuck yeah, part of the movie comes in. But
let's cover the time heist. So 5 years later, Paul Rudd comes back from the quantum realm and is like, oh my god, time travel. And I really appreciate all the pop culture references and how most of our characters...
I appreciate that they went out of the way to be like, none of that fucking applies. Like, they listed every kind of time travel you could think of through pop culture, and they're like, no, none of that.
But it proves, like, some of these people are definitely, like, human, not, like, superhuman. Like, Rhodey's, like, he's basically a regular guy. So is Scott Lang, and that's why they're like, actually, we've watched this, and this is how this happens. And then Brando's like, no. Can we talk about
Professor Hulk?
Can we talk about giant Mark Ruffalo?
I loved it. It made me so happy.
Oh my god, and the diner was so funny. Hulk out!
Just seeing him as a character, like, balanced and seemingly happy was very satisfying. Because in everything else, he's anxious about worrying about turning into the Hulk. Or he's Hulk and extremely angry. So it was nice to see, like, somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. And it worked. Oh my god, when he gives Paul Rudd the tacos.
That was a very sweet moment. Yeah. I like that. And then I like the song choice for when they're Rocket and he are in the back of the pickup truck. That was nice too.
I want Hulk to come bring me tacos.
It seems like it wouldn't have been enough tacos for the Hulk, though. He looked like he only had like 5 tacos. That doesn't seem like enough.
Right? After like the giant bowl of eggs.
Yeah. He was basically eating a wok of eggs.
So maybe it was like the equivalent of me eating a mint.
Yeah. Oh, to go back real quick too. Speaking of Rocket, very very quiet and brief moment that I liked a lot with Rocket and Nebula when
Mm-hmm.
Nebula and Tony are first saved and brought back. And Rocket walks up to Nebula and just puts his hand in her hand, and they just sit there quietly. I really liked that a good deal. Those moments with Rocket are always amazing. Like when Drax pets him in the first Guardians. Like they work so well.
I like that those two just gravitated towards each other too. They were like,
Yeah.
we're all that's left, so we're a team.
Yeah.
And it was like they didn't like just like there was no like speech. They just were like, we're a team now.
This is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
in the time heist stuff, there's a lot of fun misadventure that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like America's ass, all that stuff happens.
Oh my god,
which is very fun.
I'm glad other people noticed. Okay, because there's one scene. Which movie is it? Is it maybe it's Avengers where he's wearing khaki pants and he's punching the punching bag? Damn, it's like burned into my brain.
That's the post-credit scene from the first Captain America movie that is in Avengers. Yeah.
Yep. That scene right there. That is America's ass.
And then he punches the bag off of the chain.
Yep. I liked him fighting himself. I like Hulk hates stairs as much as I hate stairs, and that's really relatable.
That was extremely funny. So many stairs. And there's so many parts in that segment that are so funny too. Like when Cap is fighting himself, he's like, "I could do this all day." Yeah, I know.
I like that he swears now. Like when he sees the other Cap, and he's like, "You've got to be shitting me," and I was like, "All right, language."
I appreciate that started from him hitting the point where, because he's a man out of time, so he's pretty straight and narrow with like religious stuff, really. So like at the end of Infinity War, the last thing he says is, "Oh God," he takes the Lord's name in vain. And from there, he's just like, "Fuck it, it's just words." Like, who gives a shit at this point? There's worse things to worry about. So I appreciate that through line came through, where he's just, as much as he can, curse like a sailor.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like that he and Tony went even further back in time, where we got our very last Stan Lee cameo.
I'm not 100% positive that that's the last one. I think we see Stan Lee later in the movie. You just don't see his face.
Okay, but this is the last movie, though, right?
Yes, yeah. This movie, but I think he might be the body on Old Man Captain America.
I'm looking this up while we discuss this further.
Because like looking at his neck and stuff and his hands, they looked a lot like I met him in person. It looked a lot like him. I haven't seen much about it at all.
Stan Lee by his neck.
Well, I mean, he's one of my heroes, and I met him twice in person. It's pretty picturesque memory moment for me. It's pretty ingrained in there, but it might not be, but it looks like it could be. But yeah, I like that his final one was also saying F you to the military establishment, which he kind of did in real life too, even though some people want to believe otherwise. But yeah, I like that whole sequence because it gives a little bit of closure for Tony, and it gives inspiration to Cap for what he goes on to do later in the movie. It was such a like weirdly heartwarming moment for, not weirdly, but like unexpected, heartwarming moment for Tony to have his he had his awkward hug that Peter had with Tony in Homecoming with his dad. So that was nice. Like the moment of him saying that his father taught him that no amount of money can buy a moment of time. There's some real good nuggets of dialogue in this movie. That being one of them.
It was not Stanley. It was Patrick Gorman.
Okay, it is confirmed. Okay. Because it looks a lot like Stan. Maybe it's the fact that he's kind of dressed the way that Stan would dress too. But yeah. The other main part of that quantum leap section of the movie, the Soul Stone segment.
Okay, that was one of the only parts that really got me, and not until the second viewing.
That was pretty rough. And that's one of those moments that I was like, man, it really sucks to see that Hawkeye has to go through all this bullshit in order to get like the good stuff for Jeremy Renner. 'Cause he just keeps having to suffer in order to like show off what he can do. I do like that until they really figure out what they need to do. I like that moment of when it cuts away and they've clearly been there for a little while and he just looks at Red Skull and goes, Hey, what's going on? Like, how's it going? But yeah, I like that they sort of, it felt like that moment from Civil War where they fight each other. Where they're like, listen, we're friends. Right? We're still friends? We're still friends. And then
wait, it's the third time they fight each other, isn't it? Because don't they fight each other in the first Avengers too?
Yeah, but in my head it's that's a little bit different just because he's not of his own facilities.
And then she fixes him by smashing his head really hard.
No, yeah, I know. I agree with you that happens, but it's not the same kind of like in Civil War they fight each other where they're just themselves instead of like one of them is under control from Loki. So I differentiate those a little bit out of technicality, but you are right. They do fight in that one as well.
I like things in threes, so I'm going to count it. It's
the magic number.
As like they were definitely on opposite sides in the first one, and then they were like sort of on opposite sides in the second one, but like, you know, we know Black Widow was a double
briefly
agent.
They were briefly on opposite sides.
Then they were definitely on the same side this time, and that's what made it so hard.
Yeah, and it was very weird because I don't know if the audience really knew how to, like, in my first showing, like there were people laughing really hard during that scene, and I was like, I don't think this is supposed to be funny. And then like 2 seconds later is when Widow launches herself off the cliff. It's like, but I think because that would have been the first death of like the main team.
When when they're hanging off the cliff and she just says, "Let me go." I was like, oh boy.
And I think the crowd was like seeing that was coming, that one of them was going to die. So I think people were like laughing at the situation because they were like, this can't be real. There's no way that one of them is going to die right now.
Well, they make it seem like it's going to be him too, because he talks about like, you know what I've done. And we're like, yeah, we did see him murder face like a lot of people. Like you start to think like maybe he's too far gone, you know, and this is the arc. Like he's doing this to save his family.
Yeah, And
then at the very last second, she's like, nope.
I did feel that. But at the same time, I found it very fitting because she had a determination of, if there's one way this has to end, I'm going to get everybody back. Like, since the shock on her face at the end of Infinity War, basically, like, going through this movie, like that whole conversation where before Cap comes in and she's talking to Rhodey over the weird video phone, where she's like, you need to find him. We're going to get him back. Like, she's determined to, like, get everybody back one way or another. So I found it really, like, it's rough, and I understand why there are some people that were like, it feels wishy-washy, but, like, to me, it makes total sense that that was how that was going to go. Because we knew for somebody to get that stone, somebody was going to have to go, regardless of who went. So,
and she was all he had left.
Exactly.
Where, on the flip side, like, she still had Cap, and, like, she still had some people.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, too, the one thing, if I had to, like, pick a negative, is, like, fuck Black Widow's story arc throughout the whole cinematic universe. I feel like she was so underutilized. They tried to do the whole thing in Age of Ultron with the Banner love interests, and I'm a monster because I can't have kids, and, like, all this bullshit, and she was really, like, kind of what held the team together in a lot of ways, and just to see her go out at the end and have to sacrifice herself after, like, all this bullshit, I was like, fuck you guys. Like, I felt like she was so underutilized in that way, and they never gave, like, I wanted her to have the same treatment they gave Hawkeye towards the end. And, like, I just feel like, I know they're gonna do a prequel, and they've been talking about a Black Widow movie for, like, a million years, but I feel like she never really got her opportunity to shine as a character, and it, like, really, really bothers me. Like, they didn't know what to do with her a lot of the time.
She got, like, cool action moments, but not as much of the actual character moments.
It's like they didn't know how to write, like, a badass female character, and then I don't even think they figured out how to find that balance until Scarlet Witch.
They got close so many times, too. Like, her being Steve's support in The Winter Soldier, and, like, the peanut butter scene in this movie. Like, there's moments where it's like, you guys got so close. You just couldn't, like, maintain it.
Like, there's just so much more they, like, could have done with her. And it and now it's very final, and I also want to throw a bench across a river. Like, you know how, like, partial I am to her story arc throughout, like, the whole, like, 11 years of movies, and that, like, they always wanted to make her a love interest, or they didn't know, or, like, why is she like this, and, like, she couldn't just be, like, a badass super spy. Like, I don't, with, like, but, you know, she cared about people, and she cared about her team, and they didn't even really show her vulnerability until this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it took until, until the very end.
They showed that she could be a friend to people, but not that she may need a friend in return.
Right? Like,
until this movie.
The peanut butter scene. Like, her eyes are welling up as she's talking to Rhodey, but she is just sucking it up, and she's like, will you just tell me where he is? Like,
yeah, just find him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, like, following all of that stuff, that lakeside scene where Hulk throws the bench, like, that section where Thor is like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. We can get her back. Like, the stuff that Jeremy Renner does in that scene is 100% the best stuff he's done in this entire franchise. That moment felt extremely real to me. Like, the way that he was just like, I'm getting angry. Like, I'm getting angry, but I'm staying just like, we can't do it. We can't do it. And then when he finally erupts, like, you go talk to him. And you see what he said. Like, oh man, that part hit hard. That part was rough to get through.
I like at the end too when he's standing. I mean, I'm not ruining anything. I'll say when he's standing with Scarlet Witch, and he's like, I wonder if she knows, and he's like, I'm sure they both do, because, like, Vision obviously didn't come back for this film either.
Yeah.
And they've both, but they were friends. I'm glad that, like, in the end, like, they.
Well, I like, because they had that moment in Age of Ultron when he's like, if you walk out that door, you walk out an Avenger. Like, I think it ties really well together with that moment that he had.
And then he rescues her from her house arrest in Civil War.
Yeah. I think they're a really good because like you think about the joke of like she's one of the most powerful on that team, and he's like just the guy with the bow and arrow, and I really like that duality of them partnering up,
and now
and him sort of being a mentor.
Though I was gonna say they both think. I mean, when she lost her brother in Age of Ultron,
Yeah,
and like so she already understood loss before everybody else, kind of.
They've both basically lost everything. Like they lost their blood and their chosen families, in a way. So yeah, I think that pairing works very, very well. It would be super cool if in the future, the Disney Plus shows that are coming out, if there is a little bit of crossover between the two shows, to be able to see, because that's the thing, is we technically don't know what's going to happen with Vision, because we don't know when that show is going to take place, the Wanda Vision show, as much as I don't really like that title.
Well, I mean, I imagine that Shuri's going to be the one to put them back together.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, there's a lot that could just be like extremely far, like they could do very like ethereal kind of stuff with him, because he's such a character that's like not of the physical world in a way. So yeah, I there's a lot that they could do with that. It would be nice. I hope that we see a little bit of like Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch crossover stuff with those two shows.
Speaking of manufactured people, I liked in the time heist portion of the movie, the dual nebulas was an interesting way to tie it all together. Because we had seen that's how it was revealed where the Soul Stone was in Infinity War, because she always has this like basically like recording going on, but the fact that they linked when they were, in the same area, the same way your Bluetooth... In the same
area, yeah.
The
same timeline anyway.
Or when you, get in somebody's house and you automatically connect to their Wi-Fi because you've been there before. It's like a very similar principle. But
we need better passwords for Nebula than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right? Seriously. But I thought that was the only plot hole that like really bothered me was that after she glitched out, why didn't she just go back and be like, "Oh my god, guys, guess what happened?" That's the only plot hole that bothered me.
I think because because she was in the same time period as, she was with Rhodey, and she was in the same time period as Black Widow and Hawkeye. So I think she was trying to warn them while she was still in the same time period, because she went back to the escape pod that they had, and tried to like do a distress call. So if she just hit the return to my time, she wouldn't have been able to do that, because they weren't communicating with each other in different time periods.
True. That's true.
Yeah. Don't worry, I got the time science.
You understand? Because if it won't happen, because your future will become your past, and your present will, like, wait, what?
I love that they were just like, we're gonna say this extremely convoluted line just so that you're 100% confused about how this works, because it obviously is not how it would ever work in real life. So let's just go with it. We're going to confuse you to just go with it. And then
I always say the part with Thor is the part that you can go pee. Because that was cute, but not detrimental.
See, that's with the stuff that I was talking about with like where my emotional connection was. That was one of the most important parts for me, because that was where he stopped feeling like he let everyone else down. That's where he learned the lesson that he says at the end of the movie, where he's like, I need to stop, worrying about who I'm supposed to be and just explore who I am. And that's being able to talk to his mom in that moment is where that happened. So for me, that's an extremely important, but I do agree that it's, for most people, probably not, because he's like schlubby Thor. He's played very
schlubby
comedically
Thor
through the whole thing.
Thorbowski.
Yeah, we're just not even gonna do the Lebowski. We're gonna mix the name now.
Yeah. I was just
Um,
waiting for him to order a White Russian.
well, that's when he said, "I want a Bloody Mary." I thought he was gonna say a White Russian. Um, that's the other thing too. Is like at the very end, when he's talking with Valkyrie on the cliffside, it actually is pretty much like one of the shots from the end of the Big Lebowski when they're on the cliff with the ashes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I liked that they continued that joke, even if it was just like a visual joke at that point. Um, yeah, I should we jump? Is there anything else we should hit before we jump into the climax
No, let's just get to it
of
because
like
that was like
landing?
where. Oh my god! So the reason that like I've been able to see it 3 times is because once we get to the end part. So here, let's just catch up to the final battle. So they get all the Infinity Stones, and Tony makes like an Iron Man glove that can house them in basically an Infinity Gauntlet. Hulk puts it on after much debate because it's mostly gamma radiation, and we know that Thor is, he's still going through it. And
Not in the best
so,
place.
not in the best place, and he pulls the snap, and then we just wait. We see the birds come back, and we're like, okay, well. And then Hawkeye's phone rings, and it's his wife. We know that it works.
I
And
really, I really like the bird thing. I really, really like the bird thing because it actually made me think about earlier in the movie and how when he was walking down that street, there was zero sound on that street. I
mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that little bit that they played.
So we know, okay, well, at least Hawkeye's family is back, and everything seems like it's been put right. And then explosions! Commence explosion dodging! Because in the meantime, Nebula
And
had opened up.
not even dodging for some of them
Well, that
because
was a
I
reference to
thought
I'm the
Scott was
Juggernaut
dead.
bitch. That was a callback
Oh,
to many, many moons ago. But anyway,
yeah.
because Nebula has opened the gateway and allowed Thanos and all his armies to ascend upon the Avengers Pavilion, and so he completely
The old model of Nebula.
yes
The
Nebula.
whole last year's model
This
Nebula.
is starting to sound like Future Diary, man. Not to make it all about
Yeah.
anime, but I'm just
Uh,
one went to fight two. Um, leave 3 alone. Anyway.
it's also like the Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
There's Dark Link. It's fine.
Yeah. And so, like, to hear the gasps in the theater when the Avengers compound is just obliterated. It's obliterated.
Yeah.
It's like missiles have been shot at it. It is just it's crumbled. But
Yep.
somehow everyone basically makes it, and then Hawkeye ends up with the gauntlet, and then and I like Thanos. Thanos is so I love his delivery of things because it's so matter of fact and calm and collected. And it's just like I'm just gonna wait. I'm inevitable. It's very he's very relaxed. Even when he's like I'm going to enjoy destroying your planet, still
It
very
was
chill.
so much more menacing in this movie to me than it was in Infinity War.
It's so much scarier
I don't
for
know
him
what
to
it
be
was.
so calm most of when he's
Yeah.
like
Just
explaining
like
what he's gonna do.
being able to see being able to see what was going to happen where he was just like, okay, I've been saying it's my destiny, but now it's my destiny for real. Like that sort of acceptance of that was just like, oh shit. Cause like when he's just sitting there, like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck, man, that is by far the most intimidating to me that he has been in the entire thing. And he had no stones at that point.
No, and he had that
It's
crazy
crazy.
double-edged sword too. His like super
Yeah,
his boomerang pinwheel weapon,
he basically had one of the lightsabers that the Inquisitors have in Star Wars Rebels.
right? Um, but
um,
then we see the original 3 take him on first, so Thor and Cap and Iron Man. And then the scene where Cap he's beating the shit out of Cap. Wait, actually, I'm go back because first he's crushing Thor with his own axe in the very similar manner to when Thor, took an axe to his chest when he's trying to get the gauntlet in Infinity War. and then you just hear the whoosh.
Yeah,
you hear the whoosh.
Thor. Yeah, because Thor, like Iron Man was like, charge me up,
Mm-hmm.
and then that happened, and then Thor throws Mjolnir, or hits it like a baseball, which was fun. But it actually hits Tony because Thanos maneuvers him in a certain way, and then he starts to fuck up Thor like real hardcore.
Because we know
it's
Thor's not at his fight weight still.
Yeah, but it's also just no matter what, it is jarring to see Thor get bloodied up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he looked rough. But yeah, just that. It is.
When Cap gets so there's your big spoiler. Cap wields the hammer, and man, does the audience cheer when he picks it up.
It is the most satisfying, like, moment of celebration in like the whole movie. Just and that brief image of it coming back to him, and then like Thor it cuts away to Thor.
I knew it. So supportive.
Oh, it's so good. Like
and then he just kicks his ass my first
with it. For a minute, yeah.
No. When he's like using the lightning and he's like using the shield in conjunction with it, like that was so awesome.
Yeah, but it doesn't take long for Thanos to then put Cap back on the ground.
Oh my god! And when he's like when he's using his double-sided sword and just taking out the shield. Like piece by piece, and then you see Cap, and he's bloodied up, he's exhausted, he's cut, and he tightens the shield around his bloody arm, and you just look, and you see Cap by himself, and like the endless. I'm excited of Thanos. I want that to be a poster in my room.
Yeah, I want to see the concept art of that.
Right, right. Oh my god, that's a beautiful shot.
I'm interested to see what the shape of the shield was here versus the broken shield in Tony's vision was. Once it becomes available to all. Because that I want to see if they matched up the prop the same way. I'm sure they probably did. It was just one of those like, now I want to see every detail. But it was my first screening Thursday night IMAX, like people were going nuts the whole time. Like the whole movie, everyone was super into it. Going to the place that I used to work, I knew going in the crowds aren't that great there. They're just kind of like, I'm just watching a movie, it's fine. And that was what it was like through most of this movie. Like not many laughs for the really big jokes and stuff like that, but when the moment where Cap actually, like, it cuts back to Cap and Mjolnir's coming back to him, the place erupted, and I was like, finally. Like, there's so much relief that I had in that moment where, like, finally this crowd is into this goddamn movie.
Oh man, on the flip side, when you see Cap by himself and all the armies descending upon him or like readying their stance, the girl behind me goes, I'm so stressed out. And I was like,
oh yeah, somebody near me was like, oh no. Like, there were audible, like, there's no way he can do this. And then to hear just that little bit of static come through and you hear Sam. It's
on
like,
your left!
It's so good. It's so good.
Oh my god, everyone was just cheering.
And then the simple drums when the first people you see come through is Black Panther and Shuri, and it's like, it's just so, that moment is something amazing. So special. It's so special.
The theater I was in just now erupted when T'Challa came on screen.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
When Peter comes back too.
Yeah. Like every single shot where it was like seeing people come back, there was the cheers for Black Panther, and then like pretty good level of cheers through everything. The Doctor Strange got a lot, but then it died down a little bit for Drax and Mantis, and then Star-Lord came on, and everyone was kind of like, eh.
You're like, you need to redeem yourself.
But then Spider-Man swings in, and people like lost their shit, especially like the young people that were like near me. You could hear them like, fuck yeah.
I like that he like also kind of like confirms that like they know what happened for the most part. Like people know that they had been gone for 5 years, so they have quickly put it together somehow.
Well, they knew that they at least like died.
They knew something.
They knew something happened like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was good, or at least they remember disappearing, and then and then reappearing. It seems. So
yeah, the one sort of reconnection that I was a little disappointed it didn't get a little bit more. Like I like the fact that Ant-Man and Wasp got their like little smile moment, but like I wish that had a little bit more time to linger. Because like the way that Scott earlier in the movie is trying to describe her, and his like stammering about her and stuff, I wish it just got a little bit more to like shine, but it was still good.
He also might have been a little tired because you know he gets tired after being Giant Man.
Yeah, that's true.
But I would say after that the cheers that came from the, I'm gonna call it the MCU version of A-Force, was freaking awesome. That was awesome. And then Scarlet Witch beating the shit out of Thanos and literally almost ripping him limb from limb. And I was like, oh my god, that was very satisfying.
The A-Force moment, well, and that's the thing, is the A-Force moment even happens after that.
Yeah.
That's before they start firing the missiles down and everything. But because that's when Captain Marvel comes back, and then the A-Force thing happens. And the A-Force thing was such a great follow-up to the Infinity War moment, the she's not alone thing. And I felt like it was such a good, like, all right, this is the start, and then this is where we get to. Like, it was such a good 1-2 punch between the two movies for those. But yeah, it is a bummer, like, Captain Marvel's not in most of the movie, but the way that she is in the movie is used so well.
I think it would be easy for her to overtake it.
Yeah, just like the extremely humanitarian aspect at the beginning of the movie, and then the just bombastic, like, I'm going to fuck shit up. Like when she's face to face with Thanos and he tries to headbutt her and she just stands there. And she's like, now what?
He literally had to take the Power Stone out to even punch her.
Yeah. Oh, it's so...
The best he can do is just fling her. But, like, I like how Scarlet Witch
even with the Power Stone.
Well, like, so Scarlet Witch had him on the ropes, and he literally sacrificed his own armies by raining down more missiles. Was the only way to stop her. And then, after that, Captain Marvel just smashes through his whole ship anyway, so bye! It's been nice knowing you, and that was the beginning of the end.
That whole sequence of, like, the passing the baton kind of stuff with the gauntlet was just so, like, it gave such good moments for a bunch of different people. Especially Spider-Man, who, as soon as he got surrounded, went to instant kill. And that suit with those arms just going crazy, that was awesome. Just seeing the pile just get bigger and bigger was so good.
I love when Cap throws the hammer to get him out of there, and he ends up with Valkyrie, and he's like, "Hi, oh my god!"
Oh, man. So, like, seeing this movie in IMAX is kind of weird because those moments are so perfect for IMAX. And this movie and Infinity War were the first two movies that were filmed entirely in IMAX. So it's kind of weird in the quiet moments seeing it in IMAX because there's so much empty space. Whereas, like, in the action sequences, it's all being used. Everything on this, like, every little inch on the screen is being used. The
Like,
quiet moments where people are just
like,
talking, it's just a lot of, like, void.
did you see where like Proxima Midnight is like holding what's his name? I never remember like the Blue Goblin's name. And like as they disappear, like there were so many other little moments that were going on in the background, or when because like
Yeah.
Okoye is the one who like just like spears him. Like the Black Order didn't even freaking stand a chance. They were so deadly in Infinity War, and here against everyone, they were nothing. Even Ebony Maw
And
was like,
speaking of everyone, finally getting the most satisfying Avengers assemble that we could possibly hope for.
right?
That was, man, this is where I'm getting like all hyped up just talking about it again. I want to go back. I want to go back and watch it again.
They had everybody. They had everybody.
Even
And
the
you know
kid from
what?
Iron Man 3.
Even the kid from Iron Man 3. And then you know what? I liked how Thanos got the gauntlet. He still got the gauntlet in the end, and that snap was
He was inevitable.
He was inevitable, and you see him go for that snap, you're like, "Oh shit. Oh shit." Like I didn't know what to expect then. But you know what?
With the empty clang.
Yep. And then Stark had them, but we know he's even in a suit of armor, he's still only human, and that is more power than the Hulk can wield. So we knew, and that like his end.
That was another perfect moment of dialogue too. Is having Thanos's "I am inevitable" and having the retort of "I am Iron Man."
Mm-hmm.
Ugh,
so
that was good. This like something. This movie is an achievement that like showcases the whole franchise of like everything building up to this. It's an achievement just to get here. But like there are moments in this movie that I feel like are going to go down in history as like the most famous moments in movies. Like it's going to be on top of so many of those, not necessarily on top of, but in the top tier of so many of those lists that get made of like top 100 moments in movies. Like that moment is going to be so high up on all those lists.
I liked when, you know, Pepper comes as rescue and Tony and her briefly they fight together. And
The back to back.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And then in the end, when she just tells him that, first of all, when Peter's like, Mr. Stark, and when he says, "I'm sorry, Tony,"
yeah.
Because he never called him Tony ever until that very moment.
There were moments where I welled up, but I held it together for the most part through this movie, but that there was no chance. There was no chance for me in that scene when Pepper said, "You can rest now." Like, ugh.
Oh my god.
It's hitting me right now talking about it.
But it was like so perfect, and I'm so glad that she was there. You know, because in the end, he was still surrounded by like all these people that cared about him. And then the funeral was beautiful.
That was the original person that like as Iron Man, he can go anywhere, but that's what kept him on the ground. Pepper is what kept him grounded to everything. So, yeah.
And then the funeral with everybody in their groups, and we see Aunt May is there with Peter, and we see all the Guardians, and Nick Fury, and Maria Hill, and
the kid from Iron Man 3.
The kid from Iron Man 3. Which I think is fair. I mean,
so many people had no idea who he was.
I had to Google it. I have to be honest with you. I was like, who is that? What did I miss? Is this setting up something in the future?
Well, I mean, it's comparatively speaking, like I think he's also a kid from Jurassic World as well. He's the younger kid from that.
Because it's the same actor, so he's aged quite a bit. But
yeah, exactly. So he doesn't exactly look quite the same. But
and now we're getting into the Lord of the Rings, all the endings, And so that was the end of Iron Man's
Yeah.
story. But I really like what they did. Okay, first of all, if we're going to talk about what happened with Cap, I would like to say that I called this on approximately March 14th, 2019. I'm just saying. And I'm pretty sure we talked about it on the pod.
Approximately.
Because I looked it up on Twitter.
You can't say approximately and then give an exact date.
I'm saying approximately because I'm not actually looking at it right now, but I looked it up like at the end of the first showing, and that's from memory. I believe it was that, but it could be somewhere else around there. However, I will say I'm pretty sure I called it. I'm pretty proud of myself for calling it, but I liked that they didn't just kill off Cap.
Yeah, it's the most fitting ending for him.
It was, because he mentioned, even when he was in the support group early on in the movie, that he was telling other people to move on, but he never moved on. He never even moved on really from Peggy.
Yeah.
He never moved on from his old life, even through all being Captain America.
And you see that with the fact that he still carries the compass around everywhere that he goes. Like, that has always been with him, no matter what. It was... Like, as that sequence was playing out where you see he's going to go back in time, it's like, okay, I know what's going to happen here. But it still hits that, like, really good emotion. Like, it's the thing with, like, It's a Wonderful Life, where it's like, It's a Wonderful Life has the most, like, happy ending of all time. But it still just feels good to experience that happy ending. Because we don't get that all the time. So, like, even if we see it coming, it still feels so good to see it actually happen.
We also got to see the passing of the shield, which probably wouldn't have happened in such a fashion if Cap had died. And I think it was important to physically pass the shield on to Sam. I think that moment was important.
If he had died, it probably would have gone to Bucky, just to follow the way that the comics went. But, like... I appreciate the way that it did. Like, I feel like Bucky actually knew because of the way that he reacted the whole time, where he's just like, we're going to hand this off to Sam. Like, it feels like they had the conversation beforehand, because the way he says, I'm going to miss you, even though, like, because for Bucky, it was only supposed to be, like, a couple seconds that he would be gone.
Yeah,
so
he knew. He had a feeling.
It feels...
This is his best friend.
Yeah, it feels... Yeah, he knows something's up.
And look at Bucky just put his life back together, like in the last movie. Like he just got his shit together. So I don't think he's ready for that. Sam deserves it. Sam has been pretty consistent. He's a veteran. I mean, I nominate Sam as Captain America.
Well, so did Captain America, so...
Exactly.
I don't think you even have to worry about it.
In the first showing, I didn't notice the wedding ring, because I was too focused on the scene. But man, what a beautiful ending to that, of just him slow dancing with Peggy. Finally got that in their cute little house.
I love leading into that. I love the interaction of Sam and Cap, where he's like, "You gonna tell me about her?" And he just goes, "No, I don't think I will." And then it just cuts to the... Oh, it's so good.
It's so
that was
good.
done so well.
And that's the last scene. That's it. And then some people are like, couldn't you not change the past? But here's the thing. So we always assumed that the guy from Agent Carter was going to be her husband, but they never really talk about her husband. We never see him in photos. And we see a photo of Cap on her desk. So we don't know. Maybe
there's also, there's the idea of the time loop of, like, the inevitability of him always going back to her because of the way that time travel in movies is explained a lot of the time.
Like, he may have... That just seemed like it was always going to happen. And when she... when she's old and he's with her and she mistakes him, we always think that she mistakes him for her husband, but she may not have been actually mistaking him. And
because I think there was an article on the Hollywood Reporter all about this as well.
So
written by I forgot her name. She's a friend of the Lauren and Brittany and all of them group. So yeah. And then no post credit scene that a lot of people were confused about at my showings.
I'm like, I swear I'm not lying to you. You can go home now. You can go pee. Like, if you have to pee, like, it's okay. You can go. You're not going to miss anything.
I do like what they did, though. Like, at the end of this movie, I don't give a shit about I don't care about seeing what's to come in the future. I'm excited about what's to come in the future. I don't need a carrot on the end of the stick to care about that right now. I appreciate that they just gave a nice little audio tribute to Robert Downey Jr. at the very end of the credits. It worked really well for me. I appreciate that subtle nod to the beginnings of everything.
Same. And people cheered, and that made me happy.
Yeah, and it's such it's one of those things that I keep bringing up. Like, there were so many just nice moments that this movie was able to wrap up with, that like a lot of like it's easy to say that like you don't want to verge too hard into the schmaltzy kind of like saccharine aspects of things, but I think at the end of this it just worked really well to lean into that a little bit more, because you want to make sure the audience feels warmth at the end of such a grueling experience.
And closure. I feel like they tied up things in a way that made sense and feels very complete.
Yep.
And I like and satisfying, and I feel like we got our emotional arcs, we got our story, like, and things made sense in terms of the characters. And some people are like, well, I didn't like this and I didn't like how they did that, and some people don't like how they did Cap and blah 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 blah. But you know what? I didn't want them to just axe everybody because their contracts were up. Like, that would have been like an easy way.
It would have been cheap.
Like, it would have been cheap. And you know what? I didn't want to watch Cap die. That's too much. That's like literally like the heart and soul of the team just being obliterated. Like, no.
Well, that's what I think of as Tony and Cap. I think of Cap as the heart of the team and Tony as the soul of the team. I wouldn't be able to deal with both of them being cut down. I would have been an utter mess.
That would have been too much, and then it would have like split the mourning between two people instead of like the focus being on, you know, mourning Tony. And I feel like that made more sense since he was like the first one. I don't know. Like, I just like how they did everything. What brilliant writing and balance. There's such a sense of balance in this movie. Thanos talks about balance. This movie is literally like the movie equivalent of that little knife he gives Gamora.
And it's during his like pre-recorded message that he gives everybody before the funeral. He straight up talks about the hero's journey. He goes into the fact that like there is a beginning and there is an end. There's always a finite end on a hero's journey. And it just really hammered home that this was like, there's more to come, but like he started everything, and this chapter, this closing instance finishes with him as well. It's so well put together in the end. That's why I say like it is wrapped up with a bow. Like, it is perfectly set by the end of this movie.
I love this movie, like, 3000.
Exactly. Man, I have a theory that like that is something straight out of one of the Russo's lives.
I love you, 3000.
That's such like a real little kid thing to say that I feel like that's something one of their kids said to them.
Yeah, probably. I would believe that.
All right. You have to go watch something that may also end up crushing you. You have to go watch Game of Thrones episode 3.
Crush me. Like Endgame actually like exhilarated me, and like I feel good coming out of it.
But this might take all that away.
I'm now gonna watch like Game of Thrones episode 3 of the final season, and we know the dead are coming, and I just expect everybody to die. So I'm ready to be like now emotionally devastated again. This has been a big weekend
balance.
for me.
That's the balance.
It's all about the balance, man.
Okay, well, I'll let you go get to that. Thank you all for listening into this somewhat extended episode.
Yes, well, you know what? It's our 100th episode, guys. Thank you for sticking with us through 100 episodes.
Somebody buy us a cake.
Yeah, right? We love cake. Cake for everybody.
Well, I like pie better.
Okay, you like pie. I like cake. Just give me the sugar.
Give me pie. All right, so we will see you on the next episode, guys.
Bye.